Hello everybody and welcome to the pre-trip how-to video. In case you're having issues or do not know how to log in to this page, please see the how-to video for logging in. In the top left corner here you'll see your icon, and beneath that is the My Forms button. Go ahead and click on that. From here you'll scroll down and find the pre-trip form button. Click on that. Your screen may look a little bit different than this, where you don't have to select your club, or if you do, you don't have to have all the different options. But from here, it'll take you to the rest of the form. This is a pretty similar form to the one we had last year. Almost all the same type of information, just in a different location. But just to make sure that you know how to fill it out, we're going to do this how-to video to show you guys how to fill it out, and if you're having any questions, because there are some fields that look a little bit different than last year. So going forward, the trip name, pretty straightforward. What the trip is, if it is, a tournament, a regional, national, just a game against Pittsburgh, you go ahead and put that information in here. The destination, in this situation, is going to be Pitt, playing over in Pittsburgh. The description, so again, what is what is going on? Are you guys playing in a round robin? Is this just for fun? Is it like a preseason meeting, preseason game, whatever the case may be? You can put that information in here. The more information you can put in here, the less likely it is we're going to have to reach out to you to ask you questions about it. It's also possible that if you put more of a description there, it can help us when trying to market your event and put that information out on social media. Next section here is the travel departure date and time. Pretty straightforward. Again, if you've seen with all the other forms, there is the calendar feature, so you're going to click on that box and it's going to pull up the calendar icon, find the date that you're leaving. So again, this is the travel departure date and time, and this is when you're leaving from State College, so when you're actually taking off to leave for whatever your location is. So please don't confuse that with departing for the event. If it's a next day sort of thing, it's when you're actually leaving from State College to go to your destination. Even if it's in the situation where the event is going to be starting on the next day, you're still going to be putting when you're leaving State College. So in this instance, we're leaving on Friday the 24th, and the game's going to start on the 25th on that Saturday. Keeping in mind also with the times that it's automatically going to default to AM, and you need to change that to PM. Okay. So moving on to the event end date and time, whether or not it's a single day, multiple day, you can indicate that on this form here. Put in the end date, and then the time for when that's going to take place. And then the return date and time. This is not when you're departing from, in this situation, Pittsburgh. This is when you're actually returning to State College. So in this instance, we're estimating it's about a 3-hour drive from Pittsburgh to State College. So we're going to put about 3.5 hours in case it takes us a little extra time when we're done with the event to leave here and return back to State College. Pretty straightforward. The next section here is additional comments for dates and times. So if you're expecting some traffic, may stop for food, using the locker rooms there to shower before leaving, coming back, any information that you may have about that is where you're going to put this information. So that's just the trip basic information. The next section you're going to move on to here is the mode of transportation. So it may look a little bit different. There may be a second page that this redirects you to, or it may look like this depending upon which web browser you're using. So the mode of transportation, so check all that apply. It's possible that you will be using multiple modes of transportation. So if you're flying to nationals and getting a rental vehicle, or if you don't have enough personal vehicles and you need to take a combination of personal vehicles and rental vehicles, whatever the case may be, you're going to click on those checkboxes and put that information in there for us to review your trip. So in this instance, we're going to be taking personal vehicles and rental vehicles. So moving on to the next section here is the personal vehicle details. You're going to be putting the personal vehicle, the name of the driver of each personal vehicle. So a little bit different from last year where you had a drop-down menu of your verified drivers. You're going to list who the drivers are, and we will be verifying them on our end and updating you as we go along for if someone's information expires. Obviously, when we're reviewing this trip, if we see that Sibby, her information has expired and she needs to update it, we'll let you guys know. But you'll just list the names of the drivers here in this section. And because we've selected rental vehicle, we're going to move on to the next section, which is the rental vehicle details. So if the rental vehicle was selected above, we're going to be renting from Enterprise, and then you're going to enter the drivers of each vehicle for who's going to be going. So in this instance, we have, we'll say, 25 people that are going, and each Sibby, Diane, and Justin can each hold 5 people in our car, but we have 25 people going, and Nick doesn't have his own personal vehicle, but he's old enough to drive. He's 21, so he can use a rental vehicle. So we're going to put him down as our rental vehicle driver. That's all you need to put down in that section. There is plenty of space in case you need to put multiple names, but from there you can move on to the next section, which is going to describe what type of vehicle. So if you just need 5 more seats, you could maybe have a mid-size sedan, or it's possible that maybe you want a minivan to have some extra room to carry some equipment. Whatever the case may be, you're just going to indicate that on there. It will automatically default to the NA option. So that way you don't accidentally skip over this and forget to change it away from a number to NA. So you make sure that you indicate the number of which type of vehicle you can be renting. Please keep in mind that our current contract does not allow us to rent 15-passenger vans. We can only do a minivan, a midsize, or if you feel like you needed an SUV type thing, you could maybe indicate that on the section above, but those are the 2 standard types of vehicles that we use through Enterprise. The next section here is the rental pickup date and time. Keep in mind that it usually takes about half an hour once you get to Enterprise to pick up the vehicle from when you actually depart for your location. So it's important that you are listing here. Sibby's double checking to see what time she put on the example. It's important that you indicate what time and date you want to actually pick up the vehicle to depart. Right, so in this instance, Sibby's going to put that she wants to pick up the rental vehicle at 5:30, and then obviously she'll put that we're actually returning on Saturday, Sibby, that we're going to be returning it upon our return back to State College. So in the event that your request falls outside of their Enterprise hours, which are 7:30 to 6 o'clock Monday through Friday, we would push that to the night before or reach out to you, but we want you to indicate your preference for time and pickup of your rental vehicles. Also, if you feel like you need to be picking those up at different times, the Enterprise rentals reservation system doesn't particularly allow that. So just provide us with the earliest time you're going to need to pick up a vehicle, or if you feel like there are drastic circumstances, you could put that information in the rental vehicle details section above. As this form is many different ways it can be filled out. If you were flying somewhere, so if Sibby were to scroll back up to the top and were to select airline, so if we were flying somewhere, obviously not to Pittsburgh, that's kind of a waste of money and time. If you were flying to Nationals, we'll say, and we needed to do the rental vehicles after our airline, the rental vehicle section would probably be once we've arrived there. So scrolling back down, we're going to be putting in the rental pickup date and time for when we're going to be landing, and then when we want to return the rental vehicles to that Enterprise location. So a lot of different ways you can submit this form, but just something to keep in mind when going forward from there. So moving forward, for those of you who use fleet vehicles, not very many of you, these are the 2 primary ones that we end up using, is the truck towing and the 15-passenger vans, which have to be driven by a university employee, so that's just why most of you don't end up using them. But same as the rental vehicle section, you're just going to list the driver of the fleet vehicle and the PSU fleet details section. And then the sections down below, again, automatically default to NA, so if you need to use one of those, you'll indicate which one it is. And then putting in, again, same as the rental vehicle time, the fleet pickup date and time options there, and then the return drop-off date and time. So pretty much the same type of information that we're using. Charter bus details. To be found, to reserve a charter bus, you're obviously going to be filling out the PDF through Fullington. You would need to obviously have that checkbox selected that you're going to be using a charter bus. If you're leaving locally from State College, you're going to be using Fullington. For those of you who sometimes fly somewhere and then use a charter bus, please make sure you're indicating the charter bus company name, the size of the vehicle, any information that you can provide. But if you're just using Fullington here locally, you just need to put Fullington Bus Company, and then either you will, at this point, have reached out to us to ask us for that PDF to fill out to send to Fullington to request a bus, or you have that and can just reuse it. If you have done that already, you're going to put that information in here. Again, if you don't have that form, you're probably going to reach out to us after you have submitted this form to us to get that PDF. Moving forward, the airline details. Again, if you have already purchased your airfare, you can put those details here. So the flight number, departure location, arrival location, times, all that information about the flight, Southwest Airlines, American Airlines, whatever the case may be. So that's where you're going to put all of the information as it pertains to airlines. Again, you may not necessarily have this information when you're filling out this form if you're filling it out far enough in advance, but we'll have you go back and put that information in once you do have it, and that way we have all this information in one location. Moving forward from the transportation section into the lodging section, you're going to pretty similar to last year. The different types of lodging options is no lodging required. So if you're just there for the day and back, don't need to do any lodging, you'll just select the no lodging required, and you'll proceed through the rest of the section down to the next one. If you are staying in a hotel, using private residence, or camping, or something along those lines, you would select those boxes and proceed from there. So in this instance, we have some members who are staying in private residence, and we've got some members who are going to be staying in a hotel. So the hotel name, you're going to, most of the same information you've probably already put on the hotel request form if you're requesting for us to put our P card down for a hotel for you. In the event that you've just reserved your own hotel, that's fine. You just list that information here. So again, going through and putting that information so we know exactly where you're going to be staying during your trip. Next section here is the private residence details. The box itself does not have the same flexibility as the previous boxes did for the name of the person and the address, so please try and make this as legible as possible for our staff when we are reviewing this form. So again, if private residents are selected, please list the homeowner's name, so we have Jane Doe there, the address 1234 Wynn Way, and then the phone number for each residence. So if that's the parent's name, or if that's, if that was Sibby's parents' house, you could put Sibby's number. But someone who's going to be at that residence location, you can put that information in there. And again, if you need multiple private residents, you're just going to go to the next line down and put that information. Again, trying to keep this as legible as possible for our staff when we're reviewing this. The next section, obviously, the other details. If you're camping somewhere, whatever the case may be, you're going to put that information in there, and then if they have a campground phone number, please provide that. If not, just at least someone from the club or at least multiple numbers from club members so we can contact you in the event of an emergency. So that kind of concludes the lodging section. Pretty straightforward, but just make sure that you are selecting the correct boxes and going from there. Moving towards the last part of the form here is the travel contact. So the contact number 1, this should be the person that is traveling with the club. Typically this is going to be an officer, but in the event that myself as the president am not traveling, I would be putting down someone else's information. Or if I am going, I'll put my information down, but it's the primary contact person from someone who's going. So going through there and putting that information in. Make sure that it is correct. And again, in the event of emergency, we need to have accurate information so we can contact you all. If you're an officer, we do have your contact information already, but if you're putting someone else's information down that we don't have, please make sure that this is legible information and accurate. Next section, again, same as with the driver section of this form. Used to be a drop-down menu, but no longer is that the case. Now it's just a free response section. If you do have multiple safety officers going, you can just put a comma between their names. and indicate them that way. Again, you do have the 2 lead safety officers for your club, as well as any other safety officers that you want to have. So your 2 lead safety officers will be certified throughout the entire year. Your other safety officers' information might expire, so it's important that you're checking with them to make sure you know when their information expires, or at least checking with our office to see if Nick, Michael, or Sibby's information has expired when you're submitting this form. Moving forward, the absence memo request. If your club does need an absence memo for this trip, you need to indicate this here. You're going to be selecting that section and then completing an additional form that indicates who is going to be going on this trip, and that's the additional section, and that's the section here below where it has your team roster, and we're going to be printing you off one absence memo request form that indicates these following people, so it won't just say Hunter Small, Rachel Pittman. It'll actually specify the entire club, so that way we can provide your club with just one form and you can disperse it from there. So if you have additional comments that you'd like to put in here for the absence memo request, such as you need it by a certain date, or any additional information you feel like needs to be put in here, that's where you can list that information. So if it's around nationals, or your nationals are around finals time or something like that, you can indicate that information so we can try and hurry along to get this completed. The team roster section, fairly similar to last year with the check boxes for people. Obviously, if someone is ineligible, you'll see their name with a strike through, and then parentheses forms that indicates that they have not completed their waiver yet. So you make sure to not select them. You can obviously go back in and edit this form later. Noticing that as you fill this out, it may let you fill out and check their name off, but we will not approve this trip form until that person has completed their forms, or until you have deselected their name. So again, before you submit this, I know it's a long form, but scrolling back through and reviewing the information that you've already selected here to make sure it is accurate, going through and double checking times, dates, AM, PM, that names are listed there, contacting our office if you have any questions before submitting it, and then going back down to the bottom to submit this request. And that concludes the submission for the pre-trip form.